And a happy Friday, everybody. We're getting close to Passover, I believe. Bad Jew I am. I don't even know what day Passover is. Hell, I can't even hear. My ears clogged. My lower back hurts. This is what getting old is like. And, I better get a little bit younger because the Mets play at 10 p.m. And it's past a lot of old people's bedtime tonight in Sacramento. Luckily, Saturday and Sunday are 4. Tonight is at 10. And you're watching Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio, at Mets Daily Show on Twitter. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button below. Every thumbs up helps the channel. We will launch soon enough memberships and super chats and fun experiences part of the show. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for that. Subscribe to my YouTube at Jake Brown Radio. Follow me at Jake Brown Radio. It's a Friday guest show today. A nice morning episode. A little cup of iced coffee, of course, to keep us awake. He's all over the place at Pix 11. It's my old co-host, Nelson Figueroa, at FIGUENY, former Mets pitcher, SNY broadcaster, former co-host of the critically acclaimed Amazing But True podcast. Welcome, Figgy. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, brother. Enjoy your iced coffee.
Do you know when Passover is?
No, but I look to you for all my Jewish news.
Yeah, I do love challah bread. It is tomorrow. It's tomorrow. So when people are watching this Friday, I believe it starts the evening of Saturday, April 12th.
Sundown.
And it ends on 4/20. So you could celebrate the end by smoking and then eating some challah bread. Because you could eat some bread and break your bread fast with challah bread instead of matzah. You switch from matzah to blunt and some challah bread. But we don't partake in those things here on Mets Daily. We are free of all kinds of things. And Figgy has 4 years of me going off the rails. Shout out to Duffelbag Cougs, by the way, on Instagram. He sent me this Mets fire hat, and it works in Philly because it's red. So it's like, yes, it has a Mets logo, but it's like Philly's colors. So I think he sent it to me knowing that I could rock it semi-comfortably in Philly because I have their colors. And it has the 50th anniversary on there. Kind of cool. This is the Mets' 60th anniversary. No, it's 50, 62, 40, 50, 63 years. So we're a little bit past 50.
Cool.
My mom is a math teacher. Well, Figgy, welcome aboard, and let's get to it. That's enough exchanging pleasantries. I think it was a strong homestand. I talked about it yesterday. I think, and you could speak to this as a pitcher, you see some of the command issues. You see McGill and Holmes walking the yard at times. I mean, did you have problems in that April weather when it's 40 degrees, 38 degrees, so cold that they move the game time up just for temperature, not for rain or snow or anything, just because it's too damn cold? Is it really hard to get a feel for that baseball?
For some guys it is, and for some guys it isn't. One of the advantages you have as a pitcher is that you're constantly moving, especially once you get warm, once you get loose, so your body temperature is warm. You feel fine that way. But when it comes to the elements and the lack of sweat, the lack of perspiration, so the grip, especially now that, most guys, there were ways to get a little bit more grip in days like that. And nowadays you can't do anything. So you can't use anything extra, even extra rosin you can't use to a certain degree. So guys most likely, try to get through it, and the mistakes or the amount of mistakes seem to be heightened during weather conditions like that. And it's not fun. I've done it since I was a kid, and that was one of the reasons. I remember I got to AA, and we had 4 guys on the 40-man roster, and yet I was the opening day starter, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm 30th round draft pick, and they're like, "Oh, you're a New Yorker," and one of the reporters goes, "Your forecast is for snow," and I go,
They're like, "If you get hurt, we don't care."
I'm expendable. Exactly it, right? So that's one of the things is that, you want guys to be able to get through this. Blisters happen a lot more because of the friction on the fingers, having to use a little bit more grip with your fingertips. There's a lot of different things that happens, but there's, nobody's going to make that excuse. There's the other team has to do it as well, all those different things, but everybody's different. The way they perspire, the way they grip a ball, the way they deal with the elements. There are some guys who were used to pitching indoors, when this time of year, and they don't have that luxury anymore. So for a guy like McGill, he's been that guy counted on to pitch in inclement weather and early on in the season when, Jacob deGrom was injured and things like that. So, he struggled with his command, but if Beatty makes the play, you're looking at a guy who, although he didn't go deep in a game, he would have had zeros for runs. And I think that's one of the things that you have to look at is, as bad as it wasn't terrible. He didn't walk, 8. It wasn't an Oliver Perez outing where he walked 8 and went 2 innings. So
And a
the
.63 ERA. I mean, can you believe? Is this April McGill or is this the
April
real?
McGill right
Is
now.
it the
No,
real new Tyler McGill now?
yeah, that's listen. How many opportunities are you going to get before they're just going to turn the page? And I think it kind of hits you a little bit more each time. That was what drove me throughout my whole career, was I never knew if I was going to stay. I never knew when was going to be the next time. You're a starter, you're a reliever. A guy comes off right now. If a guy comes off the IL, who's going to get bumped out of the rotation? You always look for little things like that, and you don't want to be that guy. So he's pitching for his, basically for his job right now. And I think with a guy who has options, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to go down again. It's only inevitable. But if you're pitching to a .63 ERA, they're going to find a way to keep you up there, because that's one of the things that I love about McGill, is that he can pitch. He is a guy who makes adjustments. He is a guy, and I hope that we saw what happened with Peterson last year. We talked about it over and over again, that the Mets have not developed starters. They went out and bought starters every year, right? They imported starters from other countries, but they had not developed any starters. And these were the two hopes for the Mets organization and the Mets coaching staff. And we saw Peterson turn a corner. He had the injured hip the year before, and it seemed like that was a big part of it, because he's been great since he's come back to the big leagues. And for McGill, opportunities, they were few and far between. But I think that now this is a chance for him to make up for that, knowing that he's going to have hopefully at least 3 months to show what he can do.
You played in a league when Jeremy Hefner was in the league as a pitcher, and he wasn't the greatest pitcher, but I mean, I've mentioned it before. This lab is going to be a Netflix special. Like what he's done, the Jeremy Hefner pitching lab. Like look at even Max Kranick right now. The guy's been unhittable, and he hasn't pitched in the big league since 2022. Tyler McGill, David Peterson, Clay Holmes becoming a starter. Griffin Canning. I mean, Griffin Canning has even been really solid. Like, what is he doing? I don't know if you can explain it, but what is he doing? What is he preaching? Because even the mound visits with Tyler McGill, McGill walks the first few guys, and then all he does is throw a strike. So clearly he said something that hit, and clearly he's saying and doing something and preaching and teaching something that is hitting home with not just these starters, these pitchers, because yes, it's too early. Yes, the weather's been cold, but the fact that a rotation and a pitching staff that came into the season as the Mets' biggest question mark has the number one ERA in baseball right now, I don't think it's just these pitchers. I think a lot of it is Hefner and this coaching staff.
Yeah, without a doubt. Listen, the pitching lab, they hired a lot of people to be involved in this pitching lab. So Hefner he's the face of it. So he's the focal point, and he gets a lot of the credit. When it comes to being a pitching coach, it's between the ears that you really work with. Like, you put development on the players, it's 90% is on them to want to be willing and actually put in the work to learn how to do things. And it's the between the ears of explaining it to them of why. It's the why. It's not the how. It's the why, because everybody's a little bit different. There's a ton of other coaches that deal with the biomechanics of, how to impart more spin, how to change the axis of the pitch to make the ball move more like a sweeper instead of a traditional down and away slider, which was just a in the zone, out the zone. The sweeper has a lot more strike zone coverage. So when you're going to pitches that you need to throw strikes with, a sweeper is a much more popular option than just a slider that's in the zone, out the zone. And I think with the analytics of it all, you have to break it down to the pitchers and the athletes in a way that they can understand it. And Hafner does a great job of that, because he was a pitcher. He was a pitcher who had some success. He was a pitcher who came back through tried to come back through two Tommy Johns and wasn't able to. So he knows about injuries. He knows about dealing with not being 100%. He knows about all those things. And I think the trust that he has from this pitching staff from top to bottom, because when you bring over a guy like Luis Severino, who was at one time an ace for the New York Yankees and got paid, I got the big contract, at the time for him, it was $40 million. So it's an opportunity to see that, oh, wow, he's helping a guy like that who last year looked lost. And it wasn't that his stuff had diminished. it was between the ears of hearing the same message over and over and over again from the voices that he was hearing it from. It didn't make sense to him. Obviously, they weren't getting through to him, and Hafner was able to do that. And Severino took off. Minaya took off. Minaya was always a prospect that you could look at a prospect list, and a guy that wound up becoming a reliever. Why? Because he was good for a short amount of time. Well, you know what? If you explained it to him, that short amount of time is each inning. Every time you go out there, and he goes out there with that mentality of Chris Sale, nastiness, try and hit this 3 pitches or less and get a guy out. You're seeing the best out of these pitchers, and I think that's one of the things. It's not just Hafner, but his delivery is masterful. But it's a team effort, and it's an investment from Steve Cohen like we've never seen before, because that pitching lab is not cheap. All the equipment in there is not cheap. All the equipment around the facilities, especially in spring training, when you have literally a track man on every mound. You have a high-speed video camera on every mound. You have an analytics coach sitting there. It used to be iPads. Now they have literally 65-inch TVs that they turn around and look at all the information instead of having to look on a little iPad. And they could just stay on the mound and be like, oh, okay, I'll just, tilt the ball a little bit more towards 1 o'clock, snap it off a little bit more at the end, and get the result that I want. And guys are getting better. Instead of it taking you 3 to 4 bullpen sessions, which if you're doing a bullpen session, twice a week, you're looking at 2 weeks to try and figure out the feel of something. You're learning the feel of something within 10, 15 pitches. And that's a huge jump and a huge advantage.
And unfortunately, the Hefner pitching lab is not the Eric Chavez hitting lab. And I think, again, with the cold weather, I think it plays a big factor with hitters because, one, these pitchers are moving all over the place. Two, the wind brought in like 10 balls that would have been home runs during the summer. There's people literally overreacting about Juan Soto. Now, Mark Vientos, I do think he's been frustrating and he's been frustrated with himself. Like, you see him throwing the bat, you see some anger. I do think in warmer weather he comes around. I'm not worried about Soto. Lindor has turned it around already. Everyone was worried early on. He has the kid. Now he's getting on base every game. Again, Soto's been getting on base every game. Pete Alonso has been tremendous, and clearly there's weight off his shoulder with the new contract, with that second year, God forbid if he did struggle. I don't want to overreact to Pete because we do know he is a streaky guy. There could be a streak coming where he goes cold, but I think it's a great sign to see early on. What do you think about this offense? They're going to get Alvarez back probably here, Figgy, next week. He's rehabbing. My guess is he's back next weekend against the Cardinals. Jeff McNeil, I mean, who would have thought we'd be begging for Jeff McNeil to come back? I don't want to harp too much. I did it on yesterday's show. Brett Beatty has been unwatchable. His approach sucks. I don't think anyone should boo the guy. I don't think they should message him saying you suck. He's a fringe roster player. It didn't work out. When Jeff McNeil's back, I think Brett Beatty's time is done with the Mets forever, whether that's in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But who would have thought we'd be rushing McNeil back? But what's your overall feel on Beatty, on this offense? Jose Siri hasn't hit a lick, but I think a couple of great base running moments have helped Siri a lot. Same with Acuna, base running and defense. Overall, top to bottom, what's your evaluation of the offense so far?
Yeah, Siri wasn't brought in here as the savior of the outfield. His defense is what he's mostly known for. Yes, he hit 24 home runs that 1 year, but he also, batted close to 200. So he is what he is.
177 last year, yeah.
Yeah, he is what he is, and he's a guy who takes big swings. He goes for the fences, but it's undeniable what his speed is. So he can help you in a multitude of ways, right? On the defensive end of it, by getting to balls in the gaps. Also, at the same time, on base, the guy is just a wild horse and will run through stop signs and beat things out that normally don't happen. This is a guy who tagged up once on a pop up in the infield. So he is that kind of difference maker with the speed. Brett Beatty is the huge question mark. Mark Vientos, of course, you feel like he has a track record, at least in the minor league side, of hitting 25 plus home runs and 80 plus RBIs for 3 seasons in a row, that he is going to be able to come out of this okay. It is a little bit of the attitude. It is a little bit of the, and I'm glad that he's throwing bats around. I'm glad that he's feeling frustrated, but there's the hustle side of things, right? Sometimes you can't control the result, but you can control what it looks like. So when you hit a ground ball to short again off the end of the bat and you're pissed about it, you can't run down the line in 5 seconds or barely make it to first base. It just looks bad. The defensive side of the ball, he's throwing the ball all over the place, and you hope it's not the offense lingering in his head and he's thinking about it and makes a little mistake that makes a big mistake because it's a two base error as a guy in scoring position now when it should have been an easy out. Um, I think Vientos is going to snap out of it. Can't tell you when. Yeah, a nicer weather always helps, so that's a big thing. Brett Beatty, I don't get it, and I
His
and I could
trade
tell you as a
value now is just so low. Like everyone's like, just trade him for a starter reliever. Who is trading for him right now?
yeah, you know what? I think the thing is that there is a body of work and there's enough video analytics to see that he has major league power. He has a sweet swing. The problem is he's not making contact right now. He's stuck in between. Vientos and Beatty are kind of doing the same thing. They're getting beat by fastballs and fastball counts. They're swinging at breaking balls and missing them by a large margin. They're guess hitting right now. Guess hitting at the major league level gets you embarrassed, and nothing is worse than going up there and feeling embarrassed. You feel defeated, and you wish you could just crumble it up and say, "Oh, I'll get him next time." If it's still the same pitcher, you're like, "Oh my God, he's going to do it to me again." Right. And so now you have to really be like, I'm just going to look for one pitch, and then you don't get that pitch. And now you just took three pitches down the middle or whatever it may be. And you're like, oh my God, now I'm really in my head. You hope an off day kind of relaxes you. You hope playing against maybe a team that doesn't have as good of a pitching staff, the Oakland A's, playing in a AAA ballpark maybe sparks it for some of these guys. Just that there's not going to be, 40,000 fans booing you or yelling at you. You're on the road as well, so you're hoping that something like this can get you at least a little success, something to build on. And I think, playing the Sacramento A's, it would be just that.
Well, now they're the ATH. Like they're not even Sacramento or Oakland. They have no city name, which to me is bizarre. I think this is going to be a cool series. First off, you're facing Luis Severino on Sunday, who I thought it was genius the Mets didn't bring him back, and so far he's looked pretty bad for the Athletics. I know it's only 3 starts, but he's had 2 starts where he gave up 5 runs each, and that's what I worried about bringing him back. He
Mhm.
did have some starts. He imploded last year. He's already done it early. So I think the Mets made the right move, keeping Manaea, letting Severino go, and letting the pitching lab handle the likes of a Griffin Canning. At least so far, we'll see. And Blackburn will not join the team this weekend against his former team. So we'll see when Blackburn returns, because the Mets might need a 6 starter here with without those off days coming up. They got
Right.
3 Athletics, 3 Minnesota, and then they're no off day. They come right back home for 4 against the Cardinals and then 3 against the Phillies. So they might need another starter. So we'll see if Blackburn returns at Citi Field for one of those series. But this is going to be cool. I think the Athletics, they hit the ball hard. They hit the ball out of the ballpark, and balls are
Hmm.
going to be hit out of the ballpark. And this is going to be a good sign of the Mets offense. Hey, Mark, Vientos, Swaggy V, you want to get out of your slump? Go to minor league stadium where balls are flying out, where Tyler Soderstrom leads all of Major League Baseball in home runs, a guy you had never heard of. This is your chance to hit your first homer, get out of your slump. Juan Soto hit a homer or two this weekend. I think this is going to be a good litmus test for the Mets against an A's team who I predicted might finish around 500. I think they're one of the sleeper teams in baseball because
Hmm.
of their young talent. But
Right.
in that ballpark, I think they're going to win a lot of games, and I think this weekend is a good test for the Mets to at least take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I think that the we haven't seen the best of Juan Soto yet, and it's not necessarily, the numbers. The power numbers are a little alarming. Only one home run, four RBIs, but he hasn't had a lot of situations. With Lindor struggling in the beginning, he's not on base, and series batting 059 at the bottom of the lineup. There's not a lot of chances for Juan Soto to come through in the clutch, but it is those moments that you're expecting him to come through in the clutch. We saw it the first game, had a chance to, they're down three, had a chance to hit a 3-run home run and tie the game, got a pitch to hit and didn't swing. Not like Juan Soto, then expanded his zone and then really expanded his zone when he struck out against Hader. So that was kind of one of those moments where listen, I'm not one of these fans that are going to be like, oh my God, he's getting paid all this money. How does he not hit a home run every time? That's not realistic. But you didn't want it to look that bad on the first day. Is he a 220 hitter that we saw going up until the last few days against the Marlins team? Who, again, you're talking about who you're playing, the level of your competition, right? He's not a two. He was not a 220 hitter. He's batting 279 right now, and his career average is around 285. So he's getting closer to that. He's getting more comfortable. He's getting more acclimated. It's a slow process, but I do think that I live for the big Soto moments. I live for the, and it doesn't have to be a home run. All it has to be is him coming through with the hit when they need it. Like I was never a huge fan of guys who hit the home run in the eighth inning where it meant nothing, but it padded their stats, right? It's an easy thing to do. All it takes is 5 home runs a month. 5 home runs a month. That's one a week. All right. One a week to be a 30 home run hitter at the major league level. And then you're like, oh man, this guy's pretty good. He's hitting 30 home runs. But when you look at when he's hitting those home runs and who he's hitting them off of, the lesser thans, I expect Soto to come through against closers. I expect Soto to come through in big moments, or at least have those kind of at bats that wear out that pitcher the way he thinks he made great pitches. And then Pete can take advantage of a guy hanging a slider, which he has done. Pete has been unbelievable. The lowest strikeout percentage anywhere close in his career. He's less than 10% striking out right now. That chasing guy that we saw last year, you can't imagine that the Juan Soto influence hasn't helped him in that way. And one of the things I saw down in spring training that I constantly tell people about is when it was batting practice, it wasn't let's see who could hit the ball the furthest. It was who can hit the ball the hardest. And Juan Soto would say, we're only hitting the ball opposite way up until whatever sign it was at the stadium, right? So for righties, they could only hit it towards right field and not get it into center field even. And he would challenge these guys to do it. And they would play games like that, games for points, whatever. And everybody loves to compete. And speaking of compete, Pete Alonso loved it. He wanted to prove Soto wrong, that he could do it. And we've seen that out of his at-bats, right? We see him hitting the ball the other way now. We see him letting the ball travel, not trying to yank the ball for home runs. And he's strong enough to hit the ball out of any part of the park. So I think it's really helped a guy like Pete Alonso. Francisco Lindor, of course, slowly coming out of it. It's just amazing that every year he starts off so slow in April. You can imagine the seasons he would have if he didn't start out so slow in April. It would be MVP caliber almost every year.
I just think the transition from the 80s in Florida to the 40s in New York, it ain't
Oh,
easy.
yes.
And I'm not saying, baby, they make a lot of money. I get it. But I think a lot of fans who are doing screen grabs of their stats after 12 at-bats. I'm like, let's get serious here. And listen, this was probably me 4 years ago. I think the Amazing but True pod, 4 years of ranting, has made me a lot more zen now, where I'm a little bit more level-headed than I ever was. I think I was, at one point, one of those lunatics who was like, how did they lose this? How did Soto swing at that pitch by a hater?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like I see what they went through last year and how they went from worst to first, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
they're 8-4 with all these bad things we're talking about. They're 8-4. Imagine when Alvarez is back, when McNeil's back, when Soto's hitting, when Siri hits a homer. Like, they're only probably going to get better. And,
Yeah.
in the division where they're going to need 90 plus wins to, be in a wild card race and maybe win the division, I'm satisfied with what I've seen so far. Obviously, it could be better, but to me, the win columns what matter. If a guy's hitting 100 but you're winning games, that's all I care about is getting the W's, Figgy.
And I can tell you that right now, that's how the team feels, right? Especially you got the mainstays of the team that are going to be there for a while with huge contracts with Soto and Lindor and Pete Alonso right now. That Vladimir Guerrero has signed that big deal.
Yeah,
Pete
what do you
Alonso
think of
can
that
breathe.
deal, by the way, and the signing bonus? I'm curious your quick thoughts on Vlad. 325 or three? What is it? 375 million or dollar signing bonus? It was.
Yeah, they made the numbers. It works. It's just a way to do it for, purposes of the because there's no salary cap, but it's just the same way that the Toronto's doing all the deferments that they can only count so many dollars towards their payroll. It's the same thing. It's all guaranteed money anyway, but it's the way that they put the math together that that's how it
Well,
works
it's
out.
more of a guarantee too because of the potential lockout that could happen. Now he gets locked in that money through the signing bonus, plus through Florida state taxes because he has a residency, I guess, in Florida, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
But I guess every
Hmm.
player, I feel like these
Yeah,
days
every
has
player does no taxes.
for no tax. They put their home address as Florida, which is that the cap? Like I never realized. A lot of players, I guess, have an address in Florida so they could use that for their direct deposit every 2 weeks.
But yeah, but it doesn't work out that way because you pay as an entertainer every state you play and you pay taxes to.
Really?
So yeah,
So
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 when
the
you're
Mets
playing in
in
California,
Sacramento are gonna have to pay
yep,
3 games of taxes in Sacramento.
Correct.
Is that real? I didn't know that's how it works.
You have to
Interesting.
you have to file for every state you play in,
They better
and
have a
that's why you
good
love having it.
goddamn Jewish accountant. God,
And
happy
that's exactly what it
Pesach.
is. So
You need a great Jew in your corner to be an accountant during when you're a baseball player. I didn't realize every city. I'm here
every
complaining
city.
about having to file New York and New Jersey, and there's people filing all 50 states.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
It's a mess. But I think, listen, it's one of these situations where Pete can breathe a lot easier because he knows that Vladimir Guerrero is not coming to New York. Pete wants to be a Met for life. This is going to be where this thing matches up, and I think the right thing is going to happen. I do think that there's going to be an extension done
During the
sooner than later.
season, you think that happens?
I don't because I don't think they want to go through that whole process of what happened last year. There's no first baseman. There's no first baseman on the horizon that you think is going to help you more in this small window. Say in the next 5 years, right? This is the
I
window.
mean, if they go internally with Ryan Clifford, he is an option, but not as exciting, obviously.
It's not even not that it's not as exciting. It's what is Ryan Clifford and what is Pete Alonso to the Mets organization. Ryan Clifford is a great trade chip for some pitching that you need. If you're trying to get an ace type pitcher, if you're trying to get an Alcantara or a Dylan Cease and then lock them up. So Pete Alonso, you know what you're getting out of a Pete Alonso. That's the thing that for me, and I get, him wanting to be the highest paid first baseman. Not that he did, but more Boris said he would make him that, and he did. But it was a $20 million contract with a $10 million signing bonus to make the $30 million, right? And so you look at if they're able to kind of take Pete, and it was about 27 million because 54 for two. 27 million and pad that out for the rest, let's say for the next 5 years. Wouldn't you do that in a heartbeat
I mean,
with
I think
as a Met?
now because they gave him 30 this year, if he keeps these numbers up, he's going to be saying, "Hey, give me 5 years for 150." I think that's his starting ask.
But he can go. But so then you let him opt out again, and look what happened. Everybody got a chance to dance with Pete Alonso, and nobody wanted to take him home.
Well, that's because he had the worst year of his life. If he has a 45
But
and
but
120
but
year and he
what's
hits
the worst? But
280,
what's the worst year? But what's the worst year of his life? The worst year of his life was 12th in all of baseball. 12th in all of baseball.
but he was not clutch. He was unwatchable last year. This year he's very watchable. So I think that
But
number
you
is going
can
to go up.
say, but you can say why he was unwatchable, right? The pressure of trying to get that contract, to the trying to be the guy on the way out, the human side, the emotional side of knowing that this might be the last time you play as a Met going out there, and every time you're expected to have the Met moments, and it wasn't happening for him, but it was happening for the team. He sat back and he didn't pout. He wasn't sitting in a corner. He was holding up the OMG sign. He was patting guys on the back because he wanted to get to the playoffs, right? Remember that meeting that he had?
Mm-hmm.
Just get me to the playoffs, guys. And then he had the swing of his life against Devin Williams. And with all that being said, all that being done, the Mets still smartly let him walk and say, go ahead, test the market, and we'll see you in a few months. And they did that. They let him go out there. And then we saw the posturing with, we might go to Toronto, and then Toronto, we might trade for Vladimir Guerrero. And that was going back and forth. But that was like when, the high school boyfriend and girlfriend are getting in a fight. Like, I'm going to go start talking to this girl. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to talk to this guy. That's what it was like. And now when you see at the end of the day, Pete Alonso got what he wanted at that moment to be the highest paid player. The home run record isn't going to matter. Okay? Because Soto, just having 20 home run years for 15 years, is going to hit 300 home runs. So
Well, if
Pete
Pete
Alonso's
goes,
legacy,
yes. I mean, if Pete stays, he probably gets the record. But
but
we'll
that's what
see.
I'm saying is that I get like a lot of people are like, oh, the home run thing is going to be really weigh on him if he leaves, that he's not going to have a chance to take over. And I said, well, that doesn't matter because then if the number stays at what it is now, 250, what was it, 252 or something like that, if it stayed at that number, think about it. Juan Soto's here for 15 years. He hits 20 home runs a year. He's going to smash that record. So Pete wasn't going to hold on to that record for all times. He was going to be just a footnote of home run hitters who had a chance to really, take over that list and not be on it or get knocked off of it by Juan Soto. I think this works out. And why not, especially if you're rolling as the Mets, especially if you're in a position of you are doing well, you take that uncertainty out of it of worrying about what happens in the offseason. 27 million will do it.
My
I don't
worry
think there's
is I don't want to do it too soon. I'm not against what you're saying. I'm not against extent. But doing it in June, and then what if he flops in the second half and you're thinking we did this too early? I think having that chip on his shoulder, knowing he can get an extension, like maybe even doing it like late August or September, Labor Day time, maybe that makes sense. If my philosophy is this, David Stearns doesn't do this. He doesn't pay
Yes.
for big
Oh,
money.
no, no, no.
That's what like if it if it's not my money, it's Cohen's money. I'm saying yeah, let's get this done. But like Stearns is not that kind of guy, and in Stearns, I trust. He's pushed all the right buttons. So what he's doing, I'm
Not
riding
all.
with. So for a lot of right buttons. And
Hmm.
if he decides, hey, I don't want to give Pete Alonso 5 year 150, I don't think he's going to age well. I'm not disagreeing with him. I do agree
Hmm.
that, and I've talked about it, the first base market, we're talking about 39-year-old Paul Goldschmidt, a 40-year-old Carlos
Right.
Santana, Ty France,
Yeah.
Josh
Keep
Naylor,
going.
who's all right.
Yeah.
Josh Naylor's not terrible, but Josh Naylor's going to get his first contract for free agency, so he's going to be looking for a massive deal. So if you're paying Alonso or Naylor, I'm going to choose Alonso, obviously. So
Hmm.
the options aren't great unless you do trade for someone, or maybe
Right.
Bellinger becomes available from the Yankees or he opts out. So the options are not great. Your hope is that you get the production from other positions, but I'm just saying, Figgy, I would not rush the extension. I love what I'm
Oh,
seeing.
no, no, no.
And I do think
Uh,
having Soto in the lineup has helped him so much in terms of pitches to
mhm.
hit. And like that grand slam moment, the 3-run game tying homer in Miami, like he's had good moments already, which is a great sign. But like,
Yes.
there's already people like I'm getting receipts of all the people like me who said don't bring him back. I'm like, it's April 11th. Can we? I love what I'm seeing, but like, let's calm down a little bit because we do know he's a streaky player. He could go 3 weeks without a homer soon, and I hope that doesn't happen. But I think we're in agreement. You should sign him, but the GM's not the guy that would. Let's close it out. We're at 30 minutes, so let's. This is the longest Mets daily of all time. Shocker! It's me and you. Of course it is. Big series this weekend, like we said. I mean, Friday's good because there's no show over the weekend, so this is 3 days of shows. So I
There you
look at
go.
it that way. It's 3 10-minute shows all in one. 10 p.m. tonight, it's Canning versus JP Sears, a lefty. So I imagine Acuna gets a start. Tomorrow, it's a 4 p.m. game. It'll be David Peterson versus TBD still. And like I said, Senga versus Severino on Sunday. So that'll be fun. Minor league ballpark. Do you still hold minor league records or have they been broken?
No, I still have the strikeout record and I think maybe one or two others. But I played in that ballpark in Sacramento. It's a
Oh, yeah.
bandbox.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
it's right
ballpark.
on the water.
Same.
Yep, same ballpark, the River Cats. I'm not that old, bro. They haven't moved it anywhere.
It
Um,
wasn't Sutter Health Park then, was it?
no, no, no. The name has changed, but it's still the same exact park, right on the water. We used to stay at the hotel, walking distance down on the riverbank, and walk there. And yeah, it was a launching pad. You would see perennially the Sacramento River Cats would lead the league in home
Was
runs.
that AAA or Double A?
Triple A, Triple A. Who's the guy that's on SNY now and MLB Network with wasn't Oakland A? Oh my
Okay.
God, why am I blanking on his name with an R?
Uh, Ryan
Recker.
Anthony
Recker.
Recker. What a bum he was.
So Anthony Recker was a guy who played down there and knew it well. Tony DeFrancesco was the manager, who was a first base coach for the Mets for a while.
Was Anthony
Um,
Recker Brett Beatty before Brett Beatty, where he crushed in AAA and did hit a laser
Listen,
bomb?
Anthony Recker was one of those guys that looked really good in a uniform. That as a catcher was just a stud, and he had some really good moments. And he was like the rest of us. We were really good 4A players that, when given an opportunity, could have done more, but we got what we got out of our ability.
Yeah, and I learned when I talked about 4A that there are 4A batteries. I said you never use a 4A battery because I've never used one in my life, but they exist. That shows you the handyman that I am. I didn't even know that they freaking exist because I got double A in remotes, triple A in remotes, double A in my mouse, like never quadruple A. But that is the
Nice,
Brett.
Jay.
How does Brett Beatty not partner with Energizer and on the face of a 4A battery? I mean, it's an easy brand deal right there for Brett Beatty and Anthony Recker. But Anthony Recker's modeling with Wilhelmina and modeling companies. That son of a bitch. Yeah, that's interesting. So it is a launch pad. So you had some of your worst numbers in Sacramento. So what you're saying is the Mets are going to hit a lot of piss missiles this weekend.
Hopefully that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for them to take advantage of this ballpark and put up some big runs and just get the ball rolling. Some good weather as well in Sacramento comparatively to New York. So we'll see if they can at least start having some respectable batting averages, because this having half the team under 200 is not cool.
There will be no piss missiles for me at any bars this weekend because I am on amoxicillin and Flonase, so no drinking for another week. So no piss
Well
missiles
done.
here. So I hope to watch them in Sacramento. Looking
There you
forward
go.
to that. Figgy, let's close out with this. Sad news. Octavio Dotel. This is a guy that you
Yeah.
grew up playing with. You were buddies with. Tell me
Hmm.
about the timeline with him and what happened. That is a nightclub that you've been to in the Dominican Republic. The roof collapsed. We also lost
Hmm.
Nelson Cruz's sister. We lost one of Pedro's family members, I believe, too.
Yeah. Hmm.
Talk about Octavio Dotel a little bit.
Octavio Dotel was one of the most lovable characters I ever played with on a baseball field. He was just a tremendous person. He got to play for 13 teams, and not only was he talented, but he was so likable that it was his laugh was infectious. He had a big booming voice. He would love to sing, love dance, love music. Um, he One of the stories I love to tell is how coming up in the minor leagues, they tell me, "Oh, we got this kid with a rocket arm. He's 2 years younger than you. We want you to help him. We'll have you guys playing catch together every day." And I'm like, "Oh, great! Now I got to play catch with this guy who throws 98 miles an hour. He's double jointed in his shoulders, and it's difficult to pick up the ball. And we're in A ball, and I would put my hat down and get down and catch them. And if my bill was pointed to the left, the ball had to be to the left of the hat. If the bill was to the right, it had to be to the right. And we'd work on this every day, trying to work on his command. And here he is throwing his fastballs and his curveballs and working on a changeup. So I'm getting beat up, man. I'm just getting absolutely beat up by this guy. And he's starting to figure it out, and you can see when he goes out there, he's just a dominant pitcher. He's just a guy that could strike out any hitter he's facing. And he goes up to the big leagues, and this is years later. 9/11 happens, and then they start checking everyone's paperwork, and they go with the checking everyone's birth certificates, and they find out that he's actually 3 years older than he said he was. And so he instantly went from my little brother to my big brother, because he's now a year older than me. And so, him being a year older than me, I remember I got a hold of him, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me right now. Like, I was helping you get to the big leagues, and you were older than me. Like, that wouldn't have happened. I'd have been like, you got to teach me something." Anyway, the funny part about it is that the Seattle Mariners bought him 3 birthday cakes because they wanted him to catch up on his birthdays, and they sang happy birthday to him all at the same time so he could feel like he caught up. And I thought it was a tribute to a guy who was just so likable, so lovable. He and my wife used to call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. We were in Double A together as well, and he was learning English, always constantly working on his English with my wife. And I just saw him 2 years ago. He came to Weehawken and hung out at my house, and he took a picture with the view, and it said how incredible it was. And it's just a guy who was just a good person all the way around, and definitely will be missed.
Yeah, I mean, gone way too soon. It's sad what happened. Our thoughts and prayers with the Dotel family. Figgy, on that note, thank you for coming on. You want to shout out everything because I know you're doing beyond 7 to 7:30 New York Sports Nation Nightly. You got digital shows. I see you doing some kind of salsa dances on Instagram. I don't know what's happening anymore.
Yeah, so I'm the Swiss Army knife of Pix 11. So I do a morning show with Marisol Castro on Wednesdays called New York Living. Chance to just do a little bit of variety show, and we do some workout stuff, we do some dancing, we do some cooking, a whole bunch of different things. So that's been a lot of fun. Marisol Castro, of course, being the PA announcer for the New York Mets. She's fantastic at everything she does. Then I'm doing, me and Mark Malusis also have a digital version of our nightly show. So we do Sports Nation Nightly, 7 o'clock, weeknights on Pix 11. And then we have the digital side of it. It goes on at 12:30, I believe 12 or 12:30. And then I replays at 3 o'clock, kind of like a preview of what we're going to talk about later on in the day on our sports show. And we might hit some different topics. We might talk about a little bit more about life and raising kids and things like that. And it's just a different side of us. It's more of a casual show, and me and Mark Malusis do that. It's called Figgy and the Moose, and we do that from usually it goes on between 12 and 12:30, and then again shoots at 3 o'clock on Pix Plus. So you have to download the app and take a look at us there. That's pretty much everything I got going on right now, and also catching up with you, Mister Mets Daily.
Yeah, and it was good to see you guys at the ballpark. And you were with Joe, right? Joe is
Yes, Joe
Joe.
Masteri.
Yeah, Joe and Perry. Like they are guys. You know why they're on TV? Let's get serious. They're good looking guys. Like and there's times where I'm like, do I just shave all this so I look less homeless maybe? But then I'm bald without a beard. It just doesn't work. Like Chris Carlin
Just
pulls it
doesn't
off.
work.
I don't think it works for me. But if you ever need a guest, not that could comment on children and raising children, although I can comment on cooking. Look at this I made last night for me and my dad.
Look at you.
Salmon, broccoli, fried. There's rice under there. Fried rice, string beans, Italian bread, and of course a DC, a Diet Coke to cap it off. A crispy DC. That is Chef Swizzy.
I give you a lot of credit right there.
Chef Swizzy with the pot. Shout out to
You,
HelloFresh teaching me
used
the
to be
ways.
chicken nuggies, and a Diet Coke.
Literally, like Dino Nuggets and McDonald's fries down the street. Now I'm cooking up filet mignon tonight. Like I'm cooking up steak.
Oh, boy.
So lots of good things happening at FIGUEROA on social media. Nelson Figueroa, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the series and the A's, and we'll catch up. We'll do this every month, bro. We'll catch up in May. Thanks for coming on. Make sure you smash that.
You got it.
Make sure
Of course.
Smash
You
that
got
thumbs
you.
up on the
Take care.
video. Comment below. Subscribe to Mets Daily. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great weekend. Peace.